My name is Keith Keppner, and I live in Athens, Georgia, and own Keppner Boxing with my wonderful wife.
All right, man, and I'm sitting in the ring.
Yes.
So if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see that we are in probably a 8,000 square foot boxing facility.
6,000.
All right.
And we're in a 22 by 22 foot boxing ring, which is actually like one of the larger, slightly larger sizes. This is a competition ring. We cut it down because the typical ring is too high.
So. All right. Awesome. So I want to start out by talking about how you run your business, how you started your business, kind of give everybody the in-depth look of how to start a gym, how to run a gym, how you market it, how you get some customers, and then second half of this, I want to talk about your mindset, the keys to success in your mind, because I know you're a thinker on philosophy and what it means to succeed, as most coaches are. So I'm excited about this. Thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely, Nick. My pleasure.
So when did you start the business?
We started officially opened the doors in 2013.
Okay.
January 1st.
So we're about 6 years in.
Yeah.
What's it been like? What were those first couple of years like? How did you decide that this is what you wanted to do?
Well, so after 2010, when I got a neck injury and had to stop boxing, I had invested so much time into boxing. Didn't go to college at all. I'm a high school dropout, and so my most actionable skills are boxing. So how do you use that? Use that as a coach. And so started coaching when I came back up from Mexico, and then fell in love with it, and then wanted to open up my own business because I was trying to do some partnerships with some other gyms. And with the boxing scene and sometimes martial arts in general, there's a lot of nefarious characters, there's a lot of unprofessionalism. And if you can create your own thing, then you have control over it in the good ways, right? And so trying to deal with partners also.
So you're going to partner and coach through somebody else's gym and go into business with somebody else possibly. And
it was just disaster after disaster, right? And so then 2013, I was tired, or like late 2012, tired of it. And
how many years did you spend going through that?
Just a couple years.
A couple years.
Not too long.
But you learned the ins and outs of the business. You learned what it took to get customers. You kind of
did not learn any of that. I maybe learned how not to treat people, right? Things like that, perhaps. How to not just straight up honestly do bad business. But the key was meeting my wife, because she managed a gym in Alpharetta for about 9 years. That had about 300 clients and was a large facility. They did kickboxing, MMA, Muay Thai. And so her experience with that was the key. So my dream was, since I met her, was basically to start my own facility and to provide a place for her where she could work and help me accomplish my dreams, but also allow her to use her skills in a more healthy environment. Her gym was a great place and everything else, but her boss and coach had a lot of personal issues, had a lot of just different challenges, and it just wasn't a healthy environment for her. And so I saw her struggle there. I wanted to help her get out of that. And she was kind of in the same boat I was, where it's like, she's 4 years older than me, but she was just at this point where she was broken up with a 3-year relationship, felt like she didn't have anybody, felt like she wasted a lot of time trying to fight and didn't have much to show for it.
But she knew how to run a gym.
Yeah, she knew how to run a gym. She knew those nitty gritty things.
Okay, perfect. So you're now in this space. Was this your first space in 2013?
No, this is our third space.
Okay.
Yeah. So we started off first with 1,200 square feet off of 441, and it's about $800 a month rent.
Okay.
And started off about maybe 15 clients, perhaps.
So you bootstrapped it. How much does it cost to? It seems like you got a lot of expensive equipment in here. It's not as much as say a workout gym where you're looking at a lot of free weights and machines.
Of course. Yeah.
But we're still talking $50,000 worth of stuff in this.
Yeah, definitely. If you allocate everything, definitely. Start off with just this boxing ring, which maybe a couple $1,000, and then we had two custom. Actually, these are two of the original custom bag racks made, but everything was sandwiched together, super tight, and it was basically so I could create my own little kingdom. Because the way that I was raised, for better and for worse, was to be a sole proprietor. So that's with the mindset I started as, and that's honestly for the first couple of years or first few years how we thought it had to be to work. And quickly we learned that it could work otherwise.
So 15 clients.
Yep.
Is this they're paying you monthly dues to come
monthly
to your
dues, gym. And I'm not keeping records, and basically just doing literally everything wrong besides I provided a quality service.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
about
So
it.
as far as operating the business, you're still learning the chops, but
Yes,
as far as
that's-
providing a good service to your clients, you were doing things right. I think.
That was the key, right? That was
Okay.
the key, yeah.
So how quickly were you able to grow the client base and become profitable and realize that, okay, this has some potential, we might want to grow this thing?
Yep. So it was about through 2013, the entire year was just me. Then basically because of me struggling, my soon-to-be future wife came on board, moved out to Athens from Duluth, and started working in the business. And then from there, then it really started going. So by the end of 2014, we had about 75 plus clients, and that were consistent, like that was our consistent number.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew that we could afford a better location because we're a little bit outside of town, it was cheap.
And what's a monthly membership cost? So 75 customers, about $100 a month or so?
At the time, super cheap, because with many people, when you start a gym or you start any type of business, you undersell yourself, right? And people don't respect you as much too, which is funny. It's like right? If you charge more, they might respect you more.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was like $70 a month.
But still, you're bringing in $5,000 a month in recurring
Yeah,
revenue.
yeah,
You
that's
live on
right.
That after you pay your $800 a month rent.
This is true. This is
Okay.
true. This is true. And also, like, I had a wonderful situation where I was living rent free. So and
You're lean. You're lean life.
yeah.
Okay.
So super easy. And so then we started growing that, went into 2,500 square feet, 2,400 square feet on Baxter Street, which is a little bit more in downtown type area. And that gave us much more exposure, grew our clientele base very quickly over 2 years to over 200 clients.
Wow.
Yeah, or right about 200. And right about 200 is funny, we hit this lid because it started getting crowded. And we're like, holy crap, we got to move again, because if we don't, we saw the numbers starting to go back down, and that's a bad trajectory. And so we knew that we had to go to a space that we could at least sustain. So that's where we we over doubled our space, but didn't go ostentatious. Made sure part of the challenge was to find a location that could suit this, that had the proper roadside coverage, because a lot of facilities, a lot of gyms, different places like that, they're off the road. They're not
Can't see
visible.
them, can't drive by.
Yeah, and
You get a lot of your clients that way? They drive by and see
so many, and so many people. It's one of those things. Is just being on people's mind, right? Easy for people to forget about you. But we have a free billboard on the side of the building.
I saw a big
Yeah.
board about
Yeah.
40 feet long. It
Hell
says
yeah.
Keppner Boxing.
That's
ribbon.
right. That's right. And I didn't pay crap for that. It's like man, this other gym owner that I was guy starting out, just like how I was telling him, like, dude, you don't have a freaking sign, bro. Like just get a big poster printed out, dude. Like, just do that. But yeah, so a lot of gyms, they'll start in or they'll still be after 20 years in like a garage or like in the industrial park. No one sees it.
It's all about online word of mouth. So how did you get those early customers aside from drive-by? Did you go to a lot of events, or?
It was just by chance. It was just by chance and by quality service. Which
People would tell their friends.
Yeah, which gave it a slow growth rate. It was at a time, it's important, to kind of be first to market, and it was at a time when there was no interest in boxing in terms of people wanting to train people with boxing and provide that service. Things like 9-round weren't expansive enough yet. And yeah, it was kind of right at the beginning of the tail end starting to pick up.
Boxing, so CrossFit started helping. People started realizing that these short, high-intensity workouts are a lot better than running on the street for doing something miserable or on a treadmill for hours.
And the smaller gym model really started to take off around that time.
Okay, so interest picked up, and eventually, what year did you move into this building?
July 2017. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And so take us over the financials of do you have a lot of employees here that help you train?
Yeah, so we have 10 team members.
Wow.
And so about 6 of those are coaches, about 4 of those are front desk and sales associates.
Wow.
Yep, and now granted, none of those individuals are full time.
Okay.
We will probably this year have maybe 1 or 2 people full time. But it's one of those things that it's really good, I think, for at least especially coaches oftentimes to have a balance in their life, because not everyone can be like as nuts as I am and like commit your entire existence.
Live in the gym rat.
Yeah, essentially, right? And so about 10 team members, and so that's quite growth going from us literally thinking back in 2016 that it can only be me and Lissa. And that's it. Like when she was getting pregnant with our daughter.
So your previous 2 locations, it was just you 2 guys working.
Just us, just us. Period.
Wow.
And because we thought everyone else would mess it up, right, or something like that. Or I remember, horror stories of the first employee type thing, and you're like, oh, well, that's why we can't have that.
Yeah. So, okay, so you were saying that by the time you had your first child?
Yeah, first and only. Yep, she's 3 now.
All right,
so,
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And when that happened, it was out of necessity that Lissa realized that she wouldn't be able to be in the gym as much, but she still thought she would have Lena in the back office here with a thing. But now she's never here, and she's at home. She works from home, and and it works really well because she's actually having to go through some major surgery. So,
sorry about
but
that.
The beautiful thing about having your own business is that you're able to shift and do what you need to do to make it work.
Great. So how many members are you up to now?
300 plus.
Wow.
So, yeah.
300 plus members.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And so I'm doing some basic math. $100 a month. You're looking at being able to bring in $30,000 a month to support the business.
Yeah. And now we charge, or now the plans are mostly over. The average person pays about 100, but we have options that are above that because of obviously changes in the market. Also because we provide more service, we provide more sessions, and the quality of our product has increased, or our service rather.
Great, and still all word of mouth and drive-bys and.
So not anymore.
Okay, tell me about your marketing now.
So again, the process of growing the business, learning those marketing things, learning how to optimize the website, whatnot. So a big game changer for bringing in leads and things like that was just straight up getting a website where you had a call to action that came up, prompted up for you to. And the key with that is that it's I don't know if you've heard about the MIT study they showed where when a lead comes into a business and inquires, if you can touch that lead within 5 minutes, their the ability to convert them is dramatically increased.
Yeah.
And if it's over 5 minutes, if it's 30 minutes, it's done. You might not be able to
quote
do it.
velocity.
Yeah.
The faster you can get out quotes and get in contact with the people who are reaching out, the better you're going to do.
That's the
quote
Goliath
velocity
nowadays.
is the number one differentiator, I think, in service business, not just
100%.
gyms,
Yep,
but
all
you're a lawn
service.
care client, you're anything. If you can reach out and touch those customers as quick as possible when they're ready to make that decision. Because if you catch them an hour later, they're on to cooking dinner.
Exactly.
They don't want to talk. They're like, oh, I'm not in the mood to talk to them.
Exactly. Speed. So let me tell you a couple things with the leads. So it's our front desk and everyone else. I have an individual on our sales team that is 24/7. If he's not, if he's asleep, then obviously not. But 24/7, a lead comes through our lead system. If it's within reasonable hours, call them immediately. If it's outside of reasonable hours, text them immediately.
Wow.
And let me tell you, man, it's so beautiful because number one, you get to wow people with that service, right? Number two, you get them before they get the opportunity to look at your competitors. And then frankly, man, a lot of times people will just come to you because they'll be the other place got back to me 2 days later, you got back to me within 5 seconds. So, and what's so beautiful, and my team members love it too, and I love it obviously too, is to hear wow when you call somebody. So you call someone because they just came through lead system and they go, wow, that was fast. That makes you feel good about yourself.
Yep. So how do you kind of get them? Do you get them in for a free trial, or how do you?
Yeah, free trial is the proposition, right?
So you call and say, look, no money down, just come and check us out.
That's
see
right.
what we're about.
That's right. And actually, it's yesterday I was talking to one individual who's a client of another facility, and he was a little bit hesitant to actually come in and do the free trial. He's like, oh, well, maybe just email me the information. Because he didn't understand that when I said free trial, I actually meant, you come in here, doesn't matter, dude. I'm not going to pigeonhole you and stop you from
Sign
leaving.
the papers.
Yeah. Or even, man, sometimes places will try things, and I'm sure these things work from time to time, but they'll try to hey, if you sign up now, you're going to get this amount off. And so sometimes people will be hesitant.
Uncomfortable situations.
Yeah, uncomfortable situations. And so that's something that even though we have put so much time and energy into our sales process and everything else and scripting all that out and so many things, the goal is to be a consultative seller, to be a professional seller, and not to just be a high pressure.
And gain trust.
Yeah,
gain trust with them.
Yes.
So I got a question about how you compensate that person who is not full time, but they do chase those leads for you. How many leads? Because a lot of service businesses would love to have somebody like that.
Yeah.
They would love to have somebody who, okay, I don't need to pay them all the time to sit on the phone because I don't have that much work to do.
Sure.
But I need them to be able to answer the phone. How are you able to find that person and motivate them?
Well,
or is it you or your wife that does that?
No, well, it was initially. And I think that's an important thing. For any woman that's starting off from the ground level, is that I think one of the biggest lies or misconceptions that people come across is the concept that I'm not good at that, so therefore I don't need to be better at that. All right? Because if that was the case, this wouldn't be here, I wouldn't be here. Because I was not social at all, especially even when I started the business. I was not social at all. I wasn't good at sales. I wasn't good. I was standoffish with people. All these things. I've learned to be different, and we have to grow our weaknesses to a certain degree. So bringing on an individual like that, I think what's important is first you as the owner or the manager or the leader have to be able to model what you want first. So with like the individual that we have that is basically on call 24/7 to get a lead that comes through, and then obviously our staff member when they're here and we're open, they handle that. But they see me model it. They hear me model it. They have scripts and everything else, so they understand it. But they also just see that I enjoy interacting with clients and prospects. The way I communicate, the tonality I use, the energy I use. That is the key, I think, because if you don't model it, I see a lot of business owners in our type of sector where they will not own it. They won't model how they want their employee to act or a team member to act, and then they are confused why they don't act like that.
You got to prove it.
Yeah.
Show it.
Yeah.
Lead by example.
Yeah.
So how do you, just curious, how do you compensate the person? Is it just a
So
daily?
like with this individual, for instance, they just get $2 for every lead that comes through.
Okay.
And we get hundreds of leads that come through a month. So, that's a nice little thing because every time you just make a 2-minute phone call, you get $2. Like, that's cool.
That's great. Good idea. Good idea. I think a lot of people can implement that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have a business here that's 6,000 square feet, bringing in about 30,000 a month. I know that we don't need to get into the nitty gritty about the details, but what are some of your overhead items? How much do you pay in rent, and how much do you pay to compensate these employees on a monthly basis, and how much do you think you get to take home to your family at the end of the month?
Yeah, I can't exactly tell you what our profit is. I know that throughout this 2019 has been a big push for marketing. A lot of experimenting with marketing. Our website company, we hired them to manage our Facebook marketing for us. And that was good, but it also taught me a lot. It also taught me that I have to actually become our chief marketing officer because even though someone might have the skills or another company might have the skills, I have to I have to know what's going on so I can lead them in a certain path. I don't know if this connects with you.
Absolutely. I think of the finance, the books, doing the books and the taxes. It's hard to be blind to that because then you can't help them make decisions, make sure they're doing it right. Same with marketing and sales.
Right now, my wife who's the CFO essentially of our business. We basically brought in a CFO for a period of time. Then she increased her competency, and then
perfect plan.
Yeah, now she's able to work with our accountant and things like that. So that because now she knows. But because like people will just it's not their thing. So and until you get someone like find the right person, then you don't need to settle.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's the plan? Sounds like you have a great business model here. What's your 5-year goal with this business?
Well, so 5-year is absolutely to have multiple locations. The 2020 is the year of the franchise.
Okay.
So we have already got some offers from some franchise companies. We're working at determining and also honestly seeking what would be the best thing. We have some individuals that want to partner with us for the second location. So they would put up the funds, and essentially that will be our pilot location for the franchise because
going to Atlanta?
It will be in that direction, but it won't be in there. It will be enough that it's very manageable for myself.
Get there under now,
And that's something that I've learned is that obviously to launch that off correctly, I need to put more of my time there than I do here. Because we're at a beautiful spot right now where I'm not here every night. I'm not here most days. And so now I know I'm ready and we're ready to do that.
Perfect. So what would you say is the biggest challenge to doing that? Because now it sounds like you have your life back. You have a 3-year-old and you have
that's right.
a wife that can get some procedures done and not kill the business.
Yeah.
How did you, what was the biggest challenge and what would you say was the key to having a business that can run somewhat without you? I know you still
100%.
like to stay very
100%. Yeah, 100%. It's so amazing. So many keys, but I think really honestly, as cliche as it is, the concept that a lot of people are in is that they do something well, so they think that no one else can do it well, right? Or they overemphasize their own abilities. They think that they are just that damn good that no one else could do that. Or they think that your clients and customers come to you only because it's you, and they don't realize you can actually, to a certain degree, duplicate yourself. And sometimes, it won't be your freaking face, it won't be all your eccentricities, but it will be what is good or what is wanted.
So you're able to get employees to be extensions of you.
Yeah, but to still be their own person and realize that, because it's a few years ago, if you, Nick, were to come in our facility on Baxter Street, and be a member, you would be like, yeah, like Keith, this place is great. I love it, but it's all you. It's all, you couldn't make this. You couldn't make this outside of you because it's just all you. But now it's like so it's cool to have clients that like have been a member for like 2 weeks and I haven't met them yet. And then I still work on knowing their name. Everyone on our staff knows everyone's names, and we make a point to do that. But it's cool to have that experience of somebody comes through and I'm like, oh, hey, how you doing? And like, oh, I've been a client for like a week and I've never met you.
Perfect.
So it's beautiful.
Perfect. So I want to switch gears now.
Yeah,
talk about,
please.
As a coach,
Yeah.
you're looking at people either make things happen, have results, or not. And it's been that way your whole life. And sports is a beautiful way because sports isn't about who you know. It's not about politics, especially boxing, single sports like that. It's about you and your drive and your ability and your skill. And if you don't have it, you're going to lose.
Sure.
So what is the difference? And I want to talk about some of your mindsets and some of the things that you've noticed as kind of underlying characteristics and habits and things you can do to be successful. What are some things that you notice in even a client? We can start with a client that's going to either be successful, accomplish their goals, get stronger, get fitter, whatever their goals are. What do you think drives them to kind of experience success?
So I think honestly, sometimes it's your success with physical or anything else in life is determined largely by your own self-dialogue that occurs. And this is something that I love. I've gotten into running really hard recently. So I get an opportunity to be out there in silence with myself, challenging myself. And I get to still, even though I know these concepts, hear myself talking to myself like, oh, you can't do that. You can't run that fast. Like, you need to hold back, stop. And
this isn't fun, or the negative.
Yeah, this isn't fun, or just frankly, you can't do this, And so that's something I hear oftentimes, many times with clients and everyone else. You're repeating things that you heard other people say about you or about themselves, and you just repeated it. People saying like, "Oh, I can't do that." Well, it's like that's BS. You can't do that yet. And it's so funny, but also beautiful when people come in here and like, "Oh, well, I can't do that." Well, yeah, true, you can't do that right now, but that's right now. It's different. So the self-dialogue, people I think sabotage themselves all the time. I know I used to, saying you can't, and not realizing that a good comparison is if you are not happy with your results in your life or where you're at with business or anything else, and you have a lot of reasons for why that is. If you want to see if they're valid reasons, you need to look around very closely to other people and see if there's anyone else with worse circumstances, right, that have done more than you. And if there are people like that, which there always are, you can realize that your reasons are not valid reasons. It's like my wife is having major back surgery. That is not at all like a concern. And it's a concern for health. We hope it goes right and everything else, but it's not like going to be the reason why we fail. I had chronic Lyme disease for many, many years, and that could have been a reason why at 32 years of age, I'm a failure. But I let it be a reason to not be. So
yeah, let's talk about you.
Yeah,
let's talk about you.
Sure.
Because I want you to. I know you're a very humble guy.
Sure.
I want you to take off the humble hat for a second and tell us what you've done, because you've been very successful, and what kind of led to your success.
Sure. Well, the biggest success of my life, I believe, is just obviously getting to where I'm at. But at about the 6th grade, I started having cognitive symptoms, depression, anxiety, issues like that. Then I started losing weight and started having memory issues and things like that. And that drew on from about age 11 to age 17.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And so dropped out of high school after just about a semester. I did get a GED, but then, and during that process, almost like self-medication, but it was also just me not being on point, smoking a pack a day of cigarettes for about 4 years, smoking weed every day, like an ounce a week, or not an ounce a week, an eighth a week, and like drinking 2 or 3 times a week. And then, and something was wrong with me, something was messed up. And then thank God and we went around trying to get answers, couldn't get any. Thank God my mom was doing an internet search back in 2003. And she's like, well, how about we get this test for Lyme disease, see if you have it. Got the test done, came up positive.
And it was something that happened to you for over a 6, 7, 8 year period.
Yeah, because I grew up on 40 acres outside of Athens, playing in the woods all the time, got bit all the time.
By a tick.
By a tick. And just never had any acute bullseye rash or anything like that. But with the way the disease is, it's a spirochete, a similar family to syphilis. So it does all the wonderful things syphilis can do to you, but it can take up to 2 years to actually exhibit any symptoms from a bite. Important thing to know. So, yeah, so I wasn't bit and then got sick. I kind of got bit many times and then eventually got sick, and it was like it wasn't connected. So anyways, when I finally found out, like, holy crap, I have an answer.
And you're 17?
Yeah, I'm 17, and it's not me. It's not because I'm a loser. It's not because I am just that weak of a person. Because, man, let me tell you, you know how young men and people go through that invincible period? I never had that because I was always a sickly guy. But when I finally got the answer and I started doing the treatment, which was a very long process, and taking antibiotics and spending, thank God my family is upper middle class because thousands and tens of thousands of dollars in treatment. I'm doing this treatment and I'm still smoking weed, still smoking cigarettes. And I was like, whoa, wait a second. Are you going to be 30 years old, Keith, and not be better and still be sickly and say it's because you have Lyme disease, or be truthful and say it's because you didn't get your shit together? And so that's what made me change everything. And then in order to get my health back, I started boxing. And initially that's when MMA was kind of really blowing up. So I kind of wanted to do MMA.
Got into it, got excited about it.
Yep. And my father was a boxing coach, and I kind of used the field of diamonds in my own backyard. I was like, okay, well, let me start off with boxing first. So I started doing that, just fell in love with boxing, and it became my thing.
Got fit, got strong.
Got fit, got strong. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But let me tell you, like with many things, it's not like a movie. It's like super struggle. So, trying to get better while trying to box in a high intensity type of sport, it's like, man, my joints are shot from Lyme disease, so they're getting worse from the high impact of the way boxing training can be. And granted too, man, with something like Lyme disease, which releases neurotoxins and causes neurological damage, getting hit and having a suppressed immune system, getting hit is not a good thing. And so thank God in 2010, I went down to Mexico with my father and boxed down there for about 2 years. Thank God in 2010, I got a neck injury, actually on July 4th, which was a Sunday.
You remember the fight?
There wasn't a fight. No, I was pulling on my own neck trying to strengthen it up.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So you're a chiropractor.
It was a self-inflicted thing. Yep. It was a self-inflicted thing. I was pulling on my neck like this and was pulling on it so hard because I wanted this so bad. This is actually when I got exposed.
You were having some professional success, though.
Well,
you were a good boxer.
Yeah, I was a good boxer for having like barely any fights. But no, I was amateur. I've trained so many, and this is something I'm very proud of, is that I have trained so many individuals that have had so much more success as a competitive fighter than I ever had. And that, to me, demonstrates that I'm a good coach, right? And because I'm not that guy that's like, oh, well, I was great. I had this title, but all my people are kind of garbage, which I see sometimes. Man, it's like I'm proud to say that every fighter I train, when they're with me for a few years, they get to a point where I tell them honestly, you could beat me the hell up now or when I was boxing, because I try to make you better than I was. I don't try to hold you back. So, yeah, but I pulled on my own neck and pulled it essentially out of position where it infringed on my spinal cord and had some really horrible symptoms. And I had a fight scheduled that Friday. So that was Sunday. I had a fight scheduled that Friday. And so I did some sparring Wednesday to see how it was. Got hit high on my head, like just like that, which normally doesn't do anything, but it pulled my neck over further, kind of cut into the spinal cord, lost control of my body for just a short time. And my father, being a PhD in neuroscience, said like, hey, with the symptoms you're having with your legs and things like that, we don't need to risk it much anymore. So we got a CAT scan done and examined everything, and found massive bone spurring in my neck. Ooh. So it might have been a bone shard that stuck into it. But thank God, because of that, I stopped, and I'm healthy now. And I'm actually, really honestly, Nick, over the past 3 years, really, I'm the healthiest I've ever been in my entire life. So I'm in better shape now than I was when I was boxing. Yeah. And people don't realize that. They think, oh man, you must have been like this ultimate athlete when you're in your 20s. It's like, nah, dude, I'm 32, and I'm like way better shape than I was then.
It takes discipline, though.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, look, when you drive around town or when people want to get together or every restaurant you go to, it's tough. Yeah. It's tough.
And then also master my health, because I had a blood parasite that came along with that. And man, but it's a beautiful thing, because I'm, truly, like we all are that have struggles, right? I'm truly grateful for having Lyme disease. I'm truly grateful for having all of those things. Truly grateful for my neck injury.
How can you look such difficult circumstances in the face and say, I'm grateful that happened to me?
I know.
So many people really struggle with that, and I struggle with it when anything happens tough. It's like, why me? This is so hard. No one else has to deal with this. How do you get over that?
I tell you, I had one moment of that this year when the determination was made that my wife needed to have back surgery, because she's just so bad paid. And I remember in the car, I was like, I literally thought, for one of the first times in my life, why me? Because everything's going so well. Why me? I made it about me, which one is not about freaking me. But like, why me? And then I stopped, and I was like, well, why me? Why do I get this opportunity to grow, because it's not the things in life that are easy that make you better, it's things that are hard that make you better. And the word character comes from the Greek word for chisel, which is to chisel away at oneself. So I mean, we don't get better by having an easy life. And there's a beautiful meditation that I actually learned a couple months ago, which was the idea of imagining yourself like across the universe as your life force. It doesn't matter what you believe, but just as a life force, and that you decided to be born to the parents you have, to in the time that you were born in, the country you're born in, and then you chose every circumstance. You chose every imperfection,
the hurdles.
Every imperfection yourself. Like, you're short, you're tall, you're skinny, you're fat, or anything like that. You chose that, and if you approach it like that, and say like, I chose, like literally, I can say without like bad emotion, like I chose to have Lyme disease, and I don't feel like anyone will like be like, oh, well, Keith must want to be sick, because I know I overcame it. But to have that level of ownership, because it's only with, I think, that level of ownership and responsibility that you're able to respond properly and show up with your best self. Because life is a journey of either getting a little bit better or a little bit worse, and it's never stagnant. And so the second that you entertain some of the negative patterns of like, well, why me? Why this? A better question is, how? How can I overcome this? Because, man, you spend 1 second too long on the problem and not on the solution, it's completely meaningless. It's completely pointless. And that's where my philosophy throughout life, I like the Stoicism ideas and everything else, but really it's utilitarianism. It's utility. So what can I borrow from a religion, a philosophy, anything, from anybody that will give me of use for other people and for myself in my life? And that's it. That's it. That's
it's about
it.
the mindset.
Yeah.
Life is about the mindset.
It
Where
truly
you are,
is.
what you're accomplishing.
As
It's
cliche
about
as that is.
self-talk. It's about how you approach things. It's about the positivity.
Yeah.
It's about avoiding the negative victim mentality of taking extreme ownership. All the things that you're talking to me about are all the things that people talk about when they talk about mastering a mindset for success.
Let me tell you something, like, for instance, that, because, my wife, we also have struggled, right, with mindset, things like this. Well, one thing I think really connected with my wife and it really connected with me coming into some of these issues that she's having health-wise right now, because I went through the worst of my health issues, at least so far.
Life is hard, man.
Life is hard.
It hits
That's
you all
right.
the time.
That's right. And some people think that's cold, but it's not, right? It's also a gift. But so there's this Admiral Stockdale. You ever hear of him? James Stockdale? Okay. So he wrote this essay called, I believe, Courage Under Fire. I have. And so he was the highest ranking officer to be in the POW camps in Vietnam for about 8 years. And he was asked, Jim Collins quotes him in Good to Great. You ever read that book?
Yep, excellent book.
Yeah. Also, you should know that, the Stockdale Paradox, then.
The Stockdale Paradox?
Does that sound familiar?
I think so.
Yeah. So
It's been about 3 or 4 years since I've read
Sure.
that book. I need to refresh.
So he was Collins was asking Stockdale about his experiences and everything else, and who fared better in those situations. And was it the optimist, or was it the pessimist? And he said, well, the optimist died first, right? Do you remember that?
Really?
Yeah, where he talked about the optimist, think about it, not maybe the in-between, but the optimist said that, oh, we'll be out by Christmas. Christmas would come and pass and we wouldn't be out. We'll be out by Easter, come and pass. And then he said they would die of a broken heart, essentially, or get discouraged. Where what he realized when he got shot down, he said in his essay, is that one, he was going into the world of Epictetus, right? Of an opportunity to practice his Stoic philosophies he's been reading about, but is that he didn't know when he would get out, so he wasn't going to bullshit himself. He didn't know when he would get out, and he didn't know how he would get out, or if he would get out. But he knew that these would be the most defining times of his life, and that he was going to gain value from that. That was it. And that's like what Viktor Frankl talks about with Man's Search for Meaning and everything else, that, it's how you perceive the situations. And you can change your perception or your procedure. And that's where all your power lies, right? And so, but that concept, because, we're all exposed to those things of like, oh, well, just think positive. And I'm a very positive person, and I value that importance. But I've met, and you told me if you met people like this, Nick, that they're very positive people, but they're deluding themselves. You know what I'm saying? They're taking something which is causing maybe a placebo effect. It's not truly helping them, but they think it is. Or they think if they light a candle in their bedroom and visualize their goal being achieved, but they don't go out and do the work, that they'll get it, right? and they'll say the check will get in the mail.
And nothing can be more depressing than that if it doesn't become reality, just like you're saying.
That's right.
Just like you're saying, the optimist died first. So what you're kind of saying is, okay, it's not just all this self-talk positivity. It's let's take the most action with our current situation.
Sure.
Let's look right now and think, how can our mindset, how can our attitudes make the most utility for whatever we're dished out right
That's
now.
right. Use it as a resource, right? Precisely. Yeah, but where the failure lies is when you try to find the answer only outside of yourself and not within yourself, within your own actions, and also be honest with yourself. We all have failures. We all have miscomings. And I remember a beautiful realization I had when we first started bringing on staff members, when I finally got it together, was I remember telling one of our first kind of long-term persons that I was like, hey, man, please. He had some type of issue, and he finally talked to me about it. And I was like, man, thank you so much for talking to me. Because I told him, I was like, Marcel, I don't want this to fail and me to walk around with a story afterwards, like I see so many other people do, of that the reason why this failed was because my employees sucked, or my team members sucked, or the economy sucked, or the service sucked, or whatever it was. Where really it was because you sucked. You had some problems that you didn't take care of. And so I'd be damned if I'm going to walk around that story. And now we all have blind spots, and we all will always have blind spots. But I'll be damned if I don't purposely make a challenge to overcome those blind spots.
And what's a blind spot?
For me?
For just in general, because I've talked about this stuff a lot. I'm on the same page with you on all the things you're talking about.
Okay.
And I'll include a lot of it in the show notes.
Yeah, of course.
Because we're talking about a lot of things that
so blind
are
spot
other
for
awesome
myself?
resources. Yeah.
I would say, even though as aware as I am of tonality, it can be tonality.
The way that you're talking.
The way my voice sounds when I speak to people. And I'm a very honest person, but I don't say insulting things to people, for instance. I'm not like, oh, I'm honest, so I'm just going to downgrade you. But it's like, if I'm emotionally upset about something, even though I can like put on a beautiful front about it, like you can hear it in my voice a little bit. And I think, so
you've upset some folks.
Yeah, and I would say just the complete mastery of being mindful, man, because that, again, as cliche as that sounds, just being in the present moment and not, because with all of us that are in business, right, things like this, we're always trying to go for the future, which is important. But I think in trying to always go for the future, I forget about right now, and I forget that, like with communicating with a staff member or a client or with my wife or my partner, that I forget that I need to be fully there. You know what I'm saying? So I'm a little too focused on the next one.
So forgive me if I'm wrong here, but just from the short time that we spoke, I think one of your strengths as a person is your emotion and your energy and that drive.
Passion.
But it can also be a real detriment when it comes to decision making.
Yes.
So how do you harness that? Because so many of us as entrepreneurs are emotional, we're energetic, we're rah, let's go, and we anger, all the emotions, not just the happy emotions.
100%.
How do you harness that for success?
Well, like you touched on earlier, the destruction of the ego to the proper amount, right? We all need an ego. If you're not an ego, you're an echo. We don't need to be that, which I've been that from time to time. But realizing that, at least in my philosophy, that you can always be wrong. You can always be wrong. And you can be an expert and you can be wrong. I can be wrong. And I can be completely wrong about everything. So having that humility to step back and say, I can actually be wrong, and that doesn't mean I'm a less valuable person or my perception is not important. So for instance, that's where my wife, though, by the way, is such a key for my success and for our business success, is because I'm the passion. And she's passionate too, but I'm like the passion. And so
you're shoveling coal on the fire. Let's go, rah.
But she's like, well, dude, it's like gonna smoke up the whole room, so I'm gonna screw it up. And so it's like I tell people, like with our business, if it was just me, especially throughout the past 6 years, if it was just me, I could build it pretty big, but the foundation would be rotting on the inside. And because I'm great with macro, I'm great with big things, but I'm bad with details, or I have trouble. And now granted, I've owned that. I've worked at that. I haven't completely pushed that off to someone else and to her. You can ask her. I've grown so much in my realization and mindfulness of the details. But I think really having that damn humility, man, because at the end of the day, a beautiful reflection is, tell me if you heard this one, at the end of your life, you may meet what you're supposed to be or what your actualized potential is, right? And I don't want that to be too far off from myself. It may be.
You want to be the best version
yeah,
of you.
yeah. And if I don't do that, I'm failing my family, my daughter, my wife, myself, and the people around me that rely on me. But I mean, man, you know the whole cliche about regret is the worst pain of all, right? And again, I'll be damned if my father passed last year, 73 years of age, and I know he had a lot of regrets, and he had a lot to be proud of as well. But we all learn what to do from our parents and what not to do, and he taught me both. And and so, for instance, let me mention this, acknowledging of the cold, hard realities and the truth and how what you don't know will kill you, and that's where you always need to make sure you're knowing. So he died of stage 4 cancer. He, for his blood work for years, came up in his blood work that he might have something, and you should get a biopsy when that comes in your blood work. I can't remember what the sign was. I need to start getting tested.
Yeah, proteins or whatever.
Yeah, but that was coming up. And he's a PhD in neuroscience. He's a smart guy. He's not stupid. But he was under the misnomer and had the misinformation that getting a biopsy had a small percentage likelihood of making a cancer, if it's there, spread. And that's actually not even correct at all. But it was a misconception, misperception, and misinformation.
Blind spot.
And yeah, in a blind spot. And it freaking killed him. Because he's smart enough and he's educated enough that it leads to a bias and makes him think that he knows something maybe he doesn't know. And and so therefore what happened is, it's like in my realm of being around him, everything's fine. Oh, he's having this problem, that problem. Oh, I'm just getting older, this type of thing. Then all of a sudden, stage 4 cancer metastasized to the bone, and like 6 months, you're done. And so acknowledging that with your life, with business, with everything, with your relationships, that, man, if you overlook that, if you try to be the flowery optimist, right, and don't acknowledge the cold, hard realities, you're screwed. So that's
beautiful thing.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of reading on this stuff. What's your favorite book?
Oh, too many. I read 20 plus books a year.
You've read Principles by Ray Dalio, I'm sure.
I have not. I haven't committed the money to it. So
he's got a really good perception of blind spots, very similar to you. He's like, I don't know everything, and I'm so successful because I know what I don't know. That's his whole.
Yeah,
it's a great book, but you don't need to read it because you already
sure.
practiced that.
I've looked at the Cliff Notes.
What are your habits? What are some habits that you, if you do want to mention a book,
sure.
you can in a few minutes. But
please.
what are your habits that you kind of attribute to living a full, healthy life now, and contributing to your physical success, your relationship success with your wife, and now this beautiful business that you built?
I would say one thing is accepting the concept that you will be alone. That at the end of your life, that it'll only be you, and so therefore, some of the greatest growth periods I had in my life, like when I was 17, and then when kind of I started the business, and everything else, is the acceptance that it will only be you at the end of your life, and so therefore, it is up to your responsibility to do something with it. So my habits are to always constantly be doing some type of exercise, and to not let the metric become the goal, right? So that's something that's been huge for me over the past few years. It's been a dramatic shift for me, is the realization that it's not like what I'm measuring it by that needs to become a goal. So let me give you an example.
Like running a time.
Yeah. So and which I do make those as goals, but it's not the overall goal.
I see.
So let's say with weight loss, right? Or with health. If you're overweight, it would certainly be healthy to lose some weight. And so as you get healthier, your weight on the scale should drop. If you're 50 pounds overweight, as you get healthier, you're going to lose some weight. And so that's a decent metric, right? But if that becomes the goal, the actual thing that is what you're after,
let's say 190 pounds or whatever it is, okay?
The way you pursue that changes and can result in some bad results, right?
I see what you mean.
Yeah, so you could starve yourself. You could get a parasite.
You could be very unhealthy.
Yeah, very unhealthy. So you're not achieving what is your true goal, health, right?
I like that a lot.
Yeah, so realizing that with my goals, it's like people that I work with, dear friends, people who have other businesses. There's one gentleman dear friend of mine over the past few years that I've kind of done some mentoring of him, is he had all this habits structured out perfectly, right? Like perfect. He's a very disciplined type dude. And he had that for a whole year. But then he had this big dramatic shift in his life that he forcefully created that was positive. He got this new house. He got a studio in there for what he wants to do, and everything else is beautifully building the perfect life that he wants. But the result of that is he was losing these perfect habits he'd carved out for himself of daily reading, meditation, all these beautiful things, which I try to partake in. And he was disturbed by that a little bit. And it's like him saying that, I was able to realize within myself, but I told him, like, that's not important, man. Because think about what is the actual, is a great life the fact that you do all these goals or these habits, or is it the fact of what you're doing, right? Or what they're creating? That's the essence you're after. You're not after like, well, did I read today? It's like, well, did I learn today? Did I grow myself?
This is a beautiful mindset. This is a beautiful mindset. So many people, and myself included, fall into that trap of, okay, I'm going to measure my business success by the dollar in the checking account.
That's right.
I'm going to measure my health by the number on the scale.
Yeah.
I'm going to measure my success as a father as the size of the house that my family is living in. When that stuff doesn't matter at all.
That's right.
Like I look at what I want, like what you want people to remember you for, and what you want to do on a day-to-day basis, and who you want to impact, and set your goals around that person that you want to become, not necessarily the metric.
That's right.
Man, and that is some beautiful advice.
And along those lines, man, the final thing on that whole note, which is something I think it's important if someone's not exposed to yet, that's important to expose yourself to, at least it was for me, is because I continually would hit, well, let me give you for example, so on that metric versus goal. So therefore, what that articulates then is, let's say if you miss one day of doing your habits, right? Because I have habits, I have a calendar that I mark down things on that I check off, right? Little things. But I realize if I miss a day, that's okay. It's not the end of the world. I just got to jump back on quick. So it's not about how many times you miss, but how often you come back on.
Whereas the people who are measuring, the whole plan falls apart.
Yeah,
if they miss a day
because you failed, right? You miss one day, you failed.
So it's a lot more sustainable.
That's right.
It's a lot more sustainable, long-term,
that's right,
well-rounded way to live.
Which is the goal, right? Right? Because it's not about the now.
My wife's a dietitian. She talks about weight loss.
Yeah.
And so many people make the metric, the weight loss, and then you're right, when they mess up over the holidays or something, it's just unsustainable. When really the goal needs to be to live a healthier, sustainable life. So instead of doing these fad diets and doing all this, she promotes just, let's make some small changes that you can live with for a long time.
That's right.
And you're talking about this in every area of life.
That's right.
Business, relationships, family.
That's right. And then with like, again, with weight loss, with family, with business and health, that what I would often get frustrated, you told me if you get frustrated with this, Nick, is we all have ideals for ourselves, right? We all have that ideal vision of you, your life, how you want it to be, how you want your business to be, your family, everything else. You have that ideal vision, and because we fail to achieve it so often, we all get discouraged, don't we? Right?
And you start to love yourself less. You start to look at yourself as a lesser person.
Yep, and you lose energy. You start.
It snowballs. It gets worse and worse and worse.
That's
You're absolutely right. That happens to everybody.
Yep, and then like you start showing up not as well, and then your results start to suffer. Right. So this concept impacted me so greatly and helped me realize that I can keep the pressure on myself, but also be okay with when I diverge. And that's that your ideal is not a distant shore that you will arrive at, but it's a guiding star. And that's all it is, because in the pursuit of that ideal, you will never get there, but that's okay. But in the journey of going there, you will be in a good position.
Beautiful.
So that really dramatically impacted.
So it's not necessarily something you need to touch, that you need to have. It's just something that you need to strive for every day.
It's nothing you can grasp
over time.
It's like the hand trying to grasp itself, right? It's not possible.
It's beautiful. Any last thoughts? You got a book that you want to share with somebody?
I would say
you can talk as long as you want.
If you talk about habits, so the best book I've read so far in the realm of habit and habit creation is Atomic Habit by James Clear. Yep. Fabulous book.
Decreasing the friction so that your habits are easier to and understanding
so much other wisdom,
understanding the mental roadblocks that slow you down and things that make habits more likely to succeed. It's a study-backed book that it absolutely is amazing.
It's beautiful. And what I love it's not full of a lot of fluffy.
You got to follow James Clear on Twitter as well. He is amazing.
No, he is fabulous. He is someone I'm a gigantic fan of. I will say final thoughts just in general. So Atomic Habit, Habit Creation, wonderful book. A great book, Influence by Robert Cialdini, if you're familiar with it. Cornerstone book. It's actually one of the most recommended books.
Called Influence
by Robert Cialdini. What he did was he infiltrated cults, religious groups, political organizations.
Figured out how they were so influential.
Yep. And so even waiters and waitresses and determined what they were using. And so many of what he wrote about in his book in the 80s, internet marketers use and everything else. It's a fabulous book. But final notes that I want to touch on is that, for our level of success in business, we got good level of success for being in Athens. We're not some massive company yet, but so to just get to the level we're at, which is a level that many people want to be where we're at, right? Well, like where you are and where I am, but on that path, there's many gurus that can lead you astray. There's many. You can get too wrapped up in thinking one other person has the answer, or like a mentor. Because like, man, I've had like a couple mentors that have been like dramatically impacted me, my life, my business, myself, but it's not all there is. And I think too often nowadays, specifically with like with YouTube, and I'm like a huge consumer of YouTube, but with like YouTube and social media,
you're a passionate learner.
I'm a passionate learner, but it's so easy to fall off track, man. You start listening to the wrong person, someone who hasn't done it, or they have a survivorship bias, right? They just because
I hate the survivorship bias. Reading these damn books about Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg and thinking that's what we got to do to be successful.
Yeah. So you're familiar with this,
absolutely.
Yes. So it's like that's one thing that's so beautiful is like I set goals and I achieve most of my goals, and that's why we are where we are. That's why I have what I have. But to simply say like setting a goal is the reason why you will have success is not enough. Because there's how many people set a goal and didn't succeed. So what are some of the other things that came into play? Actually, another book recommendation, How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win by Scott Adams. Okay. He talks about how the system, again, kind of like with habits, is more important than the goal setting. Because you can set up some damn goals, but that doesn't matter. It's kind of like being like, I'm going to go to California. Well, what the hell's the map? What's the road? And a lot of people will be turned off by such a gigantic task, and they won't even start to try to just map it out. Well, at least start to try to map it out. But I would say just a word of warning to everybody that there are many people out there that have too much of their own self-interest in the world of business advice and personal development and things like this. And, it's like I've attended some seminars and had a wonderful observation of how you sell from stage. But the first time I went, which I wasn't prepared for that, I was like, oh my God, like this is horrible. Because it's like with everything, there's a lot of snake oil, there's a lot of, there's so many books, for instance, on business, right? Like I'm sure you know, where it's like teaching the same things, or things that truly aren't applicable or are not applicable at your stage, or they're just, the whole book can be encompassed in one paragraph.
Yeah, exactly. So look through everything with a lens of skepticism, healthy
100%.
skepticism.
100%. I
Does
think
that
so
make sense? I'm of the camp that take advice from anybody who will talk.
Yeah.
But only take the stuff that makes sense.
Yeah.
I pass off 90% of the advice I get as, okay, that's not applicable to me. I'm not interested in that.
That's right.
And keep an open mind and see your blind spots. And don't let a influential guru lead you down a path that maybe worked for them, but
I see many people blow so much money on what they think is going to be like, the cancer cure for their business. And it's not, and even the most smartest people, and it's not a relevancy, if you've been duped before, if you've been scammed, it's not a relevancy of how smart you are. It's the blind spot.
People like that shortcut to get rich. People like people like to do the diets because they'll lose 20 pounds the first month. People like to do the quick, get rich quick things, and no one wants to do the hard work. Ronnie Coleman, no one wants to lift this heavy ass weight. Everybody wants to be a bodybuilder. Nobody wants to lift the heavy ass weight. Everybody wants that shortcut.
That's right.
And if you're after that shortcut, got bad news for you, man. And your roadmap that it takes a long time to build something worth having. Same thing for me.
Yeah.
Same thing for 95% of the wealthy, happy people that I know.
Yeah, get rich slow, right? So
make good decisions every day with a mindset like you have developed, and work on your mindset and work on the things that can lead to success for you.
That's right, man.
I appreciate everything.
Yeah, Nate,
it's awesome listening
to you.
I can tell you've done a lot of thinking and a lot of reflecting and a lot of studying on becoming better.
Well, being sick as hell, I had not much other option.
You started this stuff when you were young.
Yeah, so when I was like 20 or so, when I was trying to box, at one point I wasn't able to. I was so sick I couldn't work out for about a month. And
you were just still trying to figure out. You're like, is this what everybody's dealing with? Am I just?
Yeah. And but I was so damn determined to succeed that you know, and that's a beautiful asset I have is that like I'm like
discipline and
yeah,
determination.
Yeah, I'm like stupid, like persistent about things. And like even with my wife, man, let me give you for instance my wife. So I met her and we dated for a month, and I've never been in a relationship really, like just like a week-long relationship before that, and like a couple of those. And she was so awesome and such a badass, and I, you know, was so amazed by her. I started telling her I loved her. She just come out with a 3-year relationship not long before that and was just trying to get out there, right? And
you scared the shit out of her.
Yeah. So like her wall went up, and it wasn't because she didn't like me or wasn't interested in me. It just the wall went up, like whoa. And so a year and a half I pursued her. A year and a half I pursued her, and with no kissing, no nothing, no true sign of it working. But I pursued her for a freaking year and a half. That gave me the inspiration to build the business, to start down that path. And because that's one thing that my parents always said about myself that I'm very proud of, is that I am persistent as hell. And I show that with my racing now. I show that with everything I do, is that, you know, you may jump past me a little bit sooner than me. You may have some fancy thing. You may have more resources than I do, but I'll be damned. I'm going to like outlast you.
The journey's part of the fun.
Yeah. Well, that is the fun.
Fun.
That is the fun, dude. And because, like, you know, too, because you've set a lot of goals for yourself, right, Nick? And you've accomplished a lot of them, right?
It doesn't feel that good.
No. Hell no, dude.
It's working towards it. That's fun. It's going to bed at night knowing you took steps forward every single day.
That's right.
That is the people think that it's the money. Oh, if I have this dollar, or if I have this house, or if I have this car, or if I have that wife, or if I have this, that I'll feel better. When if you're
finally like myself.
If you're not happy, to making it all happen, it's not going to be any different when you get there.
Yeah. And tell me with yourself, has it gotten to the point where when you accomplish a goal, it's almost like your certainty level is to a certain degree, where it's not this like quite so like euphoric and celebration, because you knew you could do it. You knew you were going to do it.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Versus like maybe if it's like tomorrow, it's like someone wins the lottery and it's like, oh my God, this is amazing. But it's like because they didn't expect it.
Yeah, you go back to your Baxter Street, your first one up in
Commerce Road.
Commerce Road, and you say, okay, someday you're gonna have 300 customers. You'd be like, wow.
Yeah.
But now you probably go over the 300 mark and you're like,
Oh yeah.
I feel the same.
It's like we've like set some pretty damn big goals for this year and we got them. And it's funny, it's like there's not this like huge euphoria feel, or it's like, man, with me with racing, I'm so proud. January 1st,
run racing.
Yeah, January 1st, I did a 5K, and my goal was to break 32, which was my best 5K. I've only been in the running for like 2 years, a year and a half, and I broke 21.
What?
And I did it.
13 minutes.
Yeah, and I did it, and it was just like, well, I knew I could do it, but it's still fun. It's like, that's cool, but I knew I could do it.
Awesome, man.
So it's beautiful, man. And what I love actually is what running. Do you run much?
I raced competitively in college. Yeah, I was a track and field athlete.
So what I love about running, man, is because I always used to be someone who, again, I was like self-limitations. Oh, I hate running. I'm not a good runner. I don't like blah, blah. But what I love about it, man, is what it's taught me is the long game. And so like I did my first half at the half this 2019. And I just love it because I've always been a sprinter type, and I've got all this passion. So I'm always that person that goes all into something and then sometimes burns themselves the hell out. So I just love the relation of like running to business and to life and everything else. It was just like, man, if you're going to run more than like, 3 or 4 miles, you got to pace it. You can hit it hard, but you got to pace it the right amount.
You got to work up to it. You got to have a plan. You got to have a 6-month plan or a year plan. If your goal is to do a marathon someday, better be a 3-year plan really to do it right.
Because it's like, man, I crushed my first athlete. I did like an hour 41 for my first ever. And, people were like, well, that was awesome. Like, how'd you do it? And it's like, well, I was training for like 2.5 months before that, right? Like building up, knowing the course, all that stuff. So
this is great. I really appreciate it. I think people are going to get a ton of value out of this. I know we went over a little on time, so I apologize for that. But the wisdom that you were able to share is awesome. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, brother.